and James.
What is going on, everybody? Jon Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Playbook Show. We got 4 games here on a Thursday. 7:30 start, Boston, Milwaukee. Finishing up with the late night hammer, Phoenix, LA at 10 p.m. James, wearing my Patriots shirt today. Bill Belichick, no longer the head coach. Salu, 26 years, 6 championships. So pay a little homage to the end of an era here in New England today.
Are his sons coming with him, or his son's still on staff?
I don't know if Stephen Belichick and his and I don't even know what the other son's name is, but I know Stephen Belichick on the defensive side. We'll see, because all indications are that Gerard Mayo is a serious candidate to replace Belichick as the head coach. If that would be the case, I mean, Stephen Belichick was sort of co-defensive coordinator there, so we'll have to wait and see how that one all plays out here. But Belichick out. As a Patriots fan, obviously excited for the change, because these last couple of years were pretty brutal. You're a Giants fan, you understand what that's about.
Except in those, what was the year? Oh, man, 2007, I believe.
Yep.
Do you remember what happened in that year?
I think was it 08 or was it 07? I forgot.
And then 2011, I think, was the other year. Do you remember what happened in that season
either?
It's
true. Anyways, this is an NBA show, so let's get to tonight's NBA slate. Big news there. Luka Doncic ruled out for tonight. Obviously, they have that matchup here against the New York Knicks. So Kyrie Irving, come on down. We have ownership out on site. Your playbook, I believe, is out.
Everything's out. The whole shebang.
Whole thing is out for all of you to enjoy here today. So, what's your overall takeaway? What's your one big takeaway? I saw your tweet earlier this morning saying that 95% of the field is playing Jaden Hardy. What's your takeaway today, man?
It's not just Jaden Hardy too. If you head over to the ownership forecaster on fantasyalarm.com, the top 7 names are Dallas Mavericks. And I actually tweeted, I doubled down on the Took2X, formerly Twitter, when you get the notification that they just stole your money out of your bank account. I also put out another tweet, just kind of pointing to the fact that I understand they're going to be shorthanded. And sometimes we all jump the gun, including you and I, right? When there's teams that are shorthanded, we say, load up. And I'm not saying this isn't one of those spots. But also when you look at some of these guys who are getting ownership, they aren't good fantasy producers.
Do we want 50% Dwight Powell? I don't.
We still have to separate from what is, when certain players are out, who is producing and who is not. And there are some guys on that list that are, and to be fair, we saw it last night with Minnesota specifically. NAW is 0.7 fantasy points per minute in the situation that they were in last night. Obviously helped that they went to overtime, but he had 30 fantasy points at a sub 4K price tag. So sometimes it doesn't matter whether you are following the numbers or not. But I do think the numbers on what we're looking at are obviously a great barometer on who is a good play versus who is a fine lineup filler versus someone that we should avoid. So I think that's obviously the big takeaway of the slate. How much Dallas is too much Dallas?
Can I say that line is still a bit suspicious to me? I get that it's Dallas at home, but the way the Knicks have been playing basketball lately, the fact that they're only a 4-point road favorite here, there's no indication that anybody's sitting out for New York, but it's just a weird line if you think about how shorthanded Dallas is going to be with, and then we're just without Luka Doncic as a whole with the way the Knicks have been playing. I threw some money down on the Knicks -4 today. We'll see if that holds or not. But that one felt like a soft line to me here.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that the Knicks, it's just, we see this, right? Dallas is a playoff team as it currently stands.
Sure.
And yes, they're missing a bunch of pieces, but I feel like it'd be hard for the books to sit here and say, well, the Knicks should be 8-point road favorites, and I agree. Like the Knicks, their net rating with OG 5-0 would rank in the top 5 in the NBA of
Right.
5-man lineups across the league. Like, hello, it's been 5 games. Like it's just they've taken that next step to probably a top 4 team in the East. If you're like ranking out from top to bottom, like, and
Yep.
they're a distant from number 1. Who's
They've been playing a lot better, which is why I kind of looking at them defensively. They've been better. There was a point where we were attacking them because of how poor they were during the month of December defensively here. That's obviously changed during this 5-game winning streak. And I just saw the 4-point spread. And I was like, 4 points, and they're out without Luka Doncic here. And you see who's going to be playing big minutes for Dallas. I like the road team there. We have Milwaukee, Boston. Boston's on a back-to-back. Yeah, no Al Horford in this game here. Milwaukee 2-point home favorite, but they open as 5.5-point home favorite. So, that's kind of interesting money moving in on Boston there, considering the fact that they just had to do an overtime game. Now they're on the road the next day. They all played a whole lot of minutes, 40 plus minutes for them, that entire starting lineup, except for, Porzingis, who wasn't active for that game. That's another one where I understand how bad Milwaukee's defense is, but like they're going to be at full strength here tonight. I mean, what's your thoughts on Milwaukee home here, just given the 2?
It's definitely an interesting movement. Like, obviously the money has come in the over, opened at 241, now at 245.5, and money on the Celtics open at 5.5, 2.5. Look, I think we saw it last night in the opposite side of this Boston matchup. Good teams are just good teams. Sure. And like Minnesota was shorthanded, awful flight delay yesterday, get into Boston in the afternoon, and probably should have won that game if not for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown down the stretch of that, right? Like probably
scored 26 between the fourth quarter and overtime.
Realistically, Minnesota probably should win that game, but sometimes stars are just stars and they steal games away because they're stars, right? So I understand what you're like thinking is. I don't know how Milwaukee guards Boston. That's their guard defense has been dreadful, right? Mm-hmm. I'm kind of like it. I just don't. I don't think Milwaukee ever runs away with this. I don't think there's a time where Boston the game feels out of reach. And I'm not going to go out on a limb and say I'm not going to pick this game, but if I was gun to my head, I might take Boston on the road just with how much Milwaukee has struggled lately, even on the second leg of a back-to-back.
Yeah, for me, I just like that now it's at 2, right? At 5.5 seemed like way too much to give, but I'm certainly sitting there looking at just 2 points here and thinking maybe Milwaukee pulls that away. We have Portland in against the Thunder here in OKC. That's a 12.5-point spread, a 237 game total there. Then our late night game, Phoenix at LA, Lakers giving one, a 238 game total there. What's your outlooks on those matchups?
I want to talk about Portland OKC a little bit more in depth when we get into the player breakdown, because I do have some. I think that is definitely an interesting back-to-back for OKC to have on their schedule. Young team, one of the youngest teams in the NBA, wins in Miami last night.
Yeah.
Young team, Miami. Big win.
Yeah.
And then has to go back to Oklahoma the next night. And this kind of feels like a look-ahead game, like who's next on the schedule, right? And we saw last week what happened. I'm not going to compare Atlanta and Portland exactly, but big win for OKC last week at home against Boston. Has a back-to-back against Atlanta the next day. Looked flat, right? Sure. Until the second half of that game. So I do have some interesting Portland thoughts, and that's just because we both play GPPs, so it's more so like
sure. I mean, Shade and Sharp's great price. We know what Anthony Simons can certainly do.
And we'll talk about their lineup. There's been some comments from Chauncey Billups about that starting lineup that hasn't included Shade and Sharp that I think we'll get into. And then the Lakers-Phoenix game, I mean, just two scuffling teams. I like it from like a
it's
a very
dangerous with it
intriguing
being the 10 p.m. start, right? Because if
it
you're
is.
not getting it like late night exposure to that game, if you're done, you have to watch AD, LeBron, Durant, Booker, Beal, and
Yes.
hope that those guys don't go nuclear and chase you down for points. So we're gonna go position by position, break it all down for all of you guys in chat. Appreciate you in there. JT popping in, saying what's up. Albert saying hello. Charles saying yo, what's up there? Cam the man in the chat for us as well. Parrish popping in. Appreciate all of you guys watching here tonight. If you want to throw any questions or comments in the chat, feel free to go and do that as well. We're more than happy to help you out. If you haven't already liked today's show, pop in there, do so. Subscribe to the channel. We go live here every day, 5 o'clock Eastern. We give out our preview shows out there overnight for all of you to get ready for the day as well. I just want to quickly comment, though. Charles in here, if Hardy's optimal, I just want to have him. He is 97% projected rostership tonight in large field GBP. So you will certainly be against the field because you'll be one of the few to not include him in your lineups here. And you'll play Powell over Hardy. God bless you, sir. Powell's getting 50% rostership here. Thoughts on Brook Lopez over 12.5 points? Listen, the problem with Brolo obviously is that he's got to deal with having to get shot attempts when Giannis, Lillard, and Middleton are all taking shot attempts there, but he does stretch the floor a little bit. He's going to have to deal with Kristaps Porzingis, who's a larger body that can also space the floor pretty well. So, not my favorite spot, but I get sort of the looks on Lopez. Just got to know that Lillard and Middleton had missed some time lately. Some of those numbers may be related to that. Let's get into it. Let's talk about our game-by-game preview or positional preview here. Point guard position, we have SGA at 10.4. You have Kyrie Irving at 9K. Of course, looking at the ownership here, you have Kyrie Irving getting 50% rostership this evening, while SGA is getting about 21%. Obviously, we like Kyrie Irving, and with all the value here, you can play them both. And they're point guard, shooting guard for Irving here at DraftKings. So do you find yourself just playing both here tonight, James?
So Kyrie for sure. And you're talking both SGA and Kyrie, or Kyrie and Jaden Hardy?
Yeah.
SGA, right?
No, I said SGA. Yeah. No, you're definitely playing Hardy and Irving together. I'm just saying, because of all the value, you can play SGA and Kyrie in the same lineup.
Yes. No problem doing so. You just have to obviously figure out your temperature on Portland OKC, because if you don't think that Portland can keep that game competitive, then you're not going to get a full allotment of minutes from SGA.
You're seemingly in the mindset that they will at least keep it within the 12.5. So we should then get full minutes here at SGA.
I do. And again, OKC has had a very tough schedule. Yeah. When you just look starting with that Boston game, 1-2 Boston, next day have to travel to Atlanta, 2 days later Brooklyn,
4 straight road games.
Washington, last night in Miami. To turn around to Oklahoma City is that's a really difficult road home back to back. So we've now played, this will be our 6th game in the last 9 days for OKC rather, with 2 back-to-backs. I get it. It's a young team. They're very, very good. If they're not, what happens if Anthony Simons gets loose early and Jeremy Grant can score? They have capable scorers on Portland. So I do think that game is going to be more competitive. This is solely a tournament mindset, though. It's not a play that I'm really interested in cash. SGA in cash games is super risky because you just don't know. The last time they played Portland, they beat them by 50 on the second leg. It was on a back-to-back. But OKC's been amazing covering at home. They've been the best team ATS at home, for what that's worth. But I do have a little feeling about Portland keeping it close tonight, just given what OKC's daunting schedule has been lately. So
sure,
I'm definitely down to get to SGA, and like you said, I'm not fading Kyrie tonight. Cash tournaments, just plug in and move on.
Yeah, 100%. Moving on into the mid tier again, there's obviously Booker. There's Jalen Brunson, a good spot against Dallas. A little revenge game narrative for Jalen Brunson.
Yep.
Dame at $8,500 here for the 8K range.
Yeah, I think Brunson of the three. Looking at some numbers, it is interesting to see the Suns and the way that the big three have operated together. And we'll talk about maybe a fourth player in that mix that has been better than all of them. But Devin Booker leads Durant and Bradley Beal 1.22 fantasy points per minute of the three. He's number one. Durant's at 1.1. Beal is at 0.92, which I think we kind of figured Beal would be the one guy to like take the biggest hit. So if you want to get to Devin Booker in that regard, that's fine. Have exposure to that late game. Brunson is in a really good spot. I mean, he's been super steady in every game that's been competitive. He's playing more minutes than essentially everyone else in the NBA. Any game that's competitive, he plays 35 plus. So if you want to get to Jalen Brunson, by all means. And we've talked about Lillard, or we talked about it on the show last night. Like he has a lot of personal issues going on off the floor. And it's not something that you and I need to air, but
yeah,
it's like clearly there's something going on with Damian Lillard, because this is, despite 25, 4, and 7 this year, it doesn't feel like it, right? It's like he's shooting 43% from the floor. He's shooting 35% from three. Like this is one of the best 3-point shooters of our generation, maybe ever. And it just hasn't clicked. And this doesn't feel like the spot where he's going to click. The price is great. If you want to play him in tournaments, by all means do so. It's obviously the best game environment on the board in terms
of the point spread and the game total make you think like, yeah, I get it. It's a lot of this is going to be Giannis, and someone else is going to have to perform in Milwaukee for that game to be competitive and high scoring.
Agreed. And I have found myself getting to more Middleton than I have Lillard as a secondary option. But 8,500 for Damian Lillard is not a price we're going to see very often, especially when he does, because he's going to start making shots. Like
he had a stretch like a couple weeks ago back where he started looking like the Dame of old. They were like, yeah, this is the guy we're kind of used to seeing, and all of a sudden it kind of been inconsistent again with the drop offs there.
Yeah, so I'm okay. Like this 8K tier is all like reasonable to get to in tournaments. Brunson's probably the safest of the three. And we know Lillard and Booker both have massive ceilings as well.
Sure. Anthony Simons, Derek White, Drew Holiday, Bradley Beal, your 7K range here. Obviously, we talked about Simons, and I've fallen into these traps as well. Like, because you look at on paper Portland, you're like, all right, a lot of scoring talent here. There's guys that can, if they hit their shots, there's no way they'll get blown out. They're just too good offensively. And then they lose by 30 to the Knicks, 30 to Dallas, 40 to Dallas. You're like, yeah, they didn't hit their shots. And then Brooklyn comes and renews your faith. And you're like, ooh, like if they just hit their shots, they'll be a competitive team. Brooklyn, we know isn't really at the level of some of these other teams that they've played. OKC is, one of the classes of the West right now. I do worry that we get hopeful that they can hit their shots and then they don't. But we're definitely banking on the 4 straight road games back to back Thunder here to maybe keep some fresh legs for Portland in this one.
Yeah, I mean, look, I am like extremely aware that this game could be over very early. But when you're talking about like a 4-game slate where all of the ownership is going to one team, right? Like everyone's lineup is going to look the same tonight. Jaden Hardy is the first person everyone's plugging. Kyrie Irving is essentially the second. And then 4 other Dallas guys.
Derek Jones, THJ.
It's a mix and match, right? Of like some other form of Dallas, either 1, 2, like there's going to be max 3, max 4, max 5.
Okay, for the inevitable question that we're going to get in chat and in our Discord later today, how many Mavericks are you willing to play tonight, James?
I don't want to say max 5, but like if you also think Grant Williams sits, you're then missing Kyrie, Exum, Lively, Grant Williams. You'd have to be really confident in the 5 you pick. Kyrie, Hardy, Hardaway would be my top 3 just from a usage standpoint.
Right.
I know you don't want to talk about Dwight Powell, but he has been really good with the guys that are out from a fantasy point per minute perspective.
Yeah, I was gonna say like really good. It's still only like 25 fantasy points, right?
Well, he is a 0.99 fantasy point per minute producer.
Right.
So it all depends on the minutes, right? If Grant Williams is out, that's likely more minutes to go his way.
Yeah.
Because then they don't have really the option to go small unless they wanted to use Morris. They could in theory use Rashawn Holmes, but
Faisal out here playing 4.
Yeah, I would say more likely to get to 4, max 4, if you are like, I'm gonna get to Anthony Davis and SGA, so I need 5, then do it, right? But max 4 would be the more comfortable.
Where are you on the Boston guards tonight?
Not necessarily. Like Al Horford being out is always the worst case scenario for like any upgrades. And especially with how well Tatum and Brown have played lately.
Yeah, it's been takeover for
It's just been really hard to like.
And they play such a short rotation too. Yeah. So like, but again, like I look at the fact that the money's moving so heavily into Boston's end here. In that high game total, it's like, hey, you get 70 then from Tatum Brown. I guess you probably throw another 25 from Porzingis, and you just kind of spread out the rest. Always a little bit risky with those guys where they're priced at. Outside of Jaden Hardy, who is $3,700, which is why he is 97% rostered here tonight. Where else are you going at the point guard position?
I'm not.
That's it.
I
agree with you, right?
I think if I were to play a Boston guard, it'd probably be Drew at 71. Outside of the revenge narrative, I just like the price a little bit better. And Derek White has definitely hit like a little bit of a wall of late. From like Drew to Jaden Hardy, there is not one singular person that I look at and I'm like, that's the person that I want to play. Unless maybe like Cam Reddish was ruled out, and in that scenario, maybe you see like D'Angelo Russell start tonight, right? And then maybe Reeves and Russell become more appealing because their minutes just are more secure when they start alongside one another, because now they're not replacing each other in the lineup. But that would really be the only other option. I really don't see anything else worth. Maybe, I guess this is something. Lou Dort got benched in the second half of yesterday's game. They started Casey Wallace.
Casey Wallace?
Yeah, I'm not like saying Casey Wallace is going to start today, but if he did, he also has blowout run potential too if you play that game. So
is there no interest in Seth Curry here? He's like the one Dallas Maverick not getting looks today.
I mean, he kind of 20%. I don't think we need to go there. Even in that Portland game that they were without Luka, the 1-5 game where Jaden Hardy started, he played 20 minutes. So like,
I would say if you're in tournaments today and you wanted to be like our guy Charles and refuse to play Hardy, for $100 cheaper, if Hardy gets off to a slow start, gets in foul trouble, Seth Curry will be the guy that moves into that lineup. So, just a pivot. Not a single lineup pivot, but if you're making 10 lineups tonight, getting a Seth Curry in there over a Hardy could be the play.
Can I Charles, if you're still in here, what's the downside, I guess, to playing a $3,700 Jaden Hardy? I get it. He's 90% owned, but they misprice. It's just a misprice, right?
Yeah.
We had the Luka news early,
well before yesterday's slate came out,
and he started. And you talked about. I mean, he started and played blowout in that game. He both, right? So why? It's just I'm just curious. I'm not It's just more of a thought because he started each of the last 3. So, okay, he's 5K on FanDuel. That's more obviously. I mean, from face value as like a player, he's obviously buried on the depth chart. But when you look at the numbers, no Luka, no Exum, no Kleba, no Derek Lively. 28% usage, 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy. Those are big, like those are objectively big numbers for a 3.7K player and a 5K player, right? Like that's so.
Yeah, the 5K is obviously a little bit tougher, but if you're looking at FanDuel specifically, where's the other value coming from to build your lineups around? Like 5K is still a decent little value over there for a guy that, most of us are out here projecting 30 minutes for tonight. So, I get that. Obviously, we're looking at DraftKings. We'll talk FanDuel for you guys too if you have those FanDuel questions. But on DraftKings, there's a reason he's 97% rostered.
Right.
FanDuel, though, over on FanDuel, Hardy's still 75%. So if you want to be part of the 25% not playing, I'm sure there's certainly other directions to go. But there's not much cheaper. Josh Green's $4,700 over on FanDuel. Maybe that's your pivot away. He's getting only 33% of the ownership over there. Derek Jones is more expensive. Dwight Powell's a little bit cheaper, but he's center power forward eligible, so you do at least have that benefit. Kyrie's 30% at 10-1. So, I still think Hardy, just out of the pure ownership perspective, right? Like if you're right and he sucks, everybody else sucks with you. If you're wrong and he's great, you don't cash at all. So that's just kind of the way it is. But we'll see. Well, I mean, if you're fading him, obviously you're up to your own lineups there. Shooting guard, it is a small slate. So we have talked about a lot of these guys already. Those that we haven't discussed yet: Jaylen Brown, Chris Middleton, top two guys in this range.
Yeah, I mean, Brown is obviously on one, and he's now scored 30 actual in 3 straight games. We've actually seen peripheral stats out of him, which, sometimes falls by the wayside. We'll see if the peripheral stats stay with Porzingis back in the lineup, because we know Porzingis, rebounds well and a lot of defensive numbers his way too.
Mm-hmm.
So you can definitely get Jaylen Brown. I like Chris Middleton in this mid tier. You and I have talked about it extensively. Like, at whatever price he was before this 7-8 price, he was too cheap. And now he's priced appropriately. And we saw as the minutes continue to rise, like 34 last game. I know it's a 1 minute difference, but like that matters. Like the minutes continuously rising matter. Like we go from a 34 minute or 33 to 34, and he goes for 40, almost 45 fantasy points in that span. Like, who's to say Chris Middleton's not into the building? They've been off for 3 days. It's like, yo, I can be extended a couple more minutes, right? Like this is the part of the plan. Like the playing time continues to expand. Shooting guard, small forward. So I'm definitely interested in Chris Middleton. Even at 7,800. Both guys here, shooting guard, small forward, really good eligibility. Like them both for tournaments. Chris Middleton, I probably definitely safe for cash games as well.
Sure. As we work our way down the list, I mean, there's Austin Reeves, obviously, Giddey at 64, Shaedon Sharpe at $5,400, Tim Hardaway Jr. getting a lot of rostership there as well.
Yeah, so Hardaway's the easy one to talk about. Really high usage rate, whether he starts, whether he doesn't. He's going to come off the bench. He's going to play 30 minutes. He's going to take a whole bunch of shots. Like, it's Tim Hardaway, right? We know what Tim Hardaway can be. When he makes shots, he has a ceiling. 5,300 is a really good price for him. A price that he often will get to 5x, especially when someone's out of the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
I think Shaedon Sharpe is the interesting one here. Obviously, really, really good eligibility. After their last game, Chauncey Billups, and I've learned this since we did the podcast this morning, a Blazers reporter was talking about this, and Chauncey specifically mentioned Shaedon Sharpe re-entering the starting lineup one of these games. So they play tomorrow as well. One of these games, Shaedon Sharpe is going to re-enter the lineup. And he might not be the only one. If Jabari Walker comes back, maybe he starts too over Duop Reith, because, Reith is I think, pretty limited with what he can do, especially he has to guard Chet Holmgren, right? So I think Shaedon Sharpe is incredibly interesting. We just saw the minutes limit lifted in that Brooklyn game when they stay competitive. 21 actual, 14 shots, 40 minutes. Like, that's the type of production and to some extent even worse than it was earlier. Obviously, there was a lot of guys out, but if he moves into the starting lineup, I assume that moves Scoot Henderson back to the bench, and that is obviously. And shout out to you, Des.
What's up, Des?
At work, boss better not know about this. But we salute to you, Des.
Making money while making money, you know.
Making money while making money. True. That's look at you, John. Nice. I think Shaedon Sharpe is incredibly interesting. Again, has to fit the narrative. You have to believe that Portland can keep this game competitive. But I do think tonight could be the night where we see a shift in lineup for Shaedon Sharpe back into the starting lineup. Yeah. Great eligibility. We were paying $8K for him like a month ago. Everything lines up for Sharpe to smash at 5,400.
Do you worry about him entering a starting lineup that includes Anthony Simons being a problem with his usage? I mean, we know what Simons is when in the lineup. You know, him, obviously they played a lot of minutes together still, but you know, certain rotation times, him coming off the bench maybe gets him more time without Simons on the floor.
No, he's been a fantasy point per minute guy, and Chauncey was talking about the wanting to move him to the unit because the starting unit because they'd rather have Scoot work with Malcolm Brogdon, and they want Shaedon to be with Simon. So I think he likes them working together. And you know, if you put like him in the lineup with Toumani Camara and let's say Jabari Walker or Duop Reith or something, like Shaedon Sharpe is still going to get plenty of opportunities. So
yeah, what I like about Shaedon Sharpe here too is the pricing is still fantastic, right? Because in these limited minute games where he was on that cap and they lost by 30, like 21 and 22 minutes, 25 and 24 minutes, 25 and 22 minutes, that's paying off 5,400 still. So like, even if there is a sense of he gets limited today because they do get blown out, but maybe he plays 25 minutes, there's still a good shot at him getting you the 5X at $5,400. He's not an 8K play where if you're limited, you're really getting sunk here. But if you do get the more minutes, I mean, he should, in theory, explode when it comes to this price point here. So like, there's legitimate 7-8X return potential here at $5,400. So yeah, I'm with you on the Shaedon Sharpe. I like him as a tournament throw anyways, just for some of that value. And if you wanted to pivot to him over Tim Hardaway, he's getting 50% of the field rostership here. Certainly you can. I mean, if you're looking at Dallas, you know, I guess OG, does he get the Kyrie assignment? Right.
For
sure. THG on the wing gets a DDV or gets Josh Hart when he comes in the game, something like that. So, you know, something to at least think about when it comes to Hardaway here. You know, Anthony Simons likely draws Case and Wallace, Lou Dort, depending on who's in that starting lineup. So,
Sure.
Any other guys down here that we haven't discussed yet that you might have some interest in?
Dante DiVincenzo is pretty steady. He's been really good for the Knicks. He's making so many threes, 44% on the year from three. Not going to really be extended past the 26 minutes. I think that's seemingly like where they like him. But in competitive games, that's kind of where he's been playing, 25, 26 minutes. Safe cash game play, last piece in play. Like Hardaway's, I think, has the higher ceiling.
He's got a steal like almost every game of the last 10. So
yeah, he's good, dude. He's just very good. He makes threes. He's a good defender. Bibbs just likes playing like Josh Hart.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and so, you know, he'll play in a competitive setting, 24 to 26 minutes and be steady for your bang for the buck.
Over at small forward, obviously we have guys with dual positional eligibility here. So you have Jason Tatum, LeBron James. They can play both positions here. Jalen Williams also coming off of some really big time performances, dual positional eligibility for him as well at $7,200. Those are the three we haven't yet talked about. Obviously no problems playing either of them at the top if you want. Jason Tatum went absolutely nuclear yesterday, 45 actual points in 42 minutes. Only 57 fantasy points. Didn't really give you any of the secondary stats we're used to generally getting out of him, but he definitely steps up his game in these Milwaukee matchups. LeBron is LeBron. 50, 60 fantasy point potential for him, gets his matchup against Phoenix. And then for cheaper, the way Jalen Williams has been playing ball lately, you got to love that.
Yeah, so, I mean, dude, the way Tatum is lacing threes right now is insane. 58% from three over his, or 55% from three over his last 5 games. He's hit 5 or more threes in 4 of his last 5 games. And we talked about it a little bit ago, right? Or a few slates ago. Like, this is the guy we wanted to pay 10K for, not like for that stretch of games where we're getting like 40 and 46 and 44. So I would definitely get to Tatum, even though he played 42 minutes yesterday, especially with the rhythm he's in offensively. He is just obviously one of the hardest players to stop in the NBA.
Watch the highlights from that game last night. His handles on some of those drives to the lane were insane.
Dude, the one he put Towns in to, I think, tie the game was just a criminal offense. So definitely like Tatum. I think how I'd approach the Lakers, truthfully, is when we get more ownership updates, just play the lower owned of LeBron or AD in the tournament, right? Just like leverage, because I think they're both great plays. Phoenix is bottom 10 defense over the last 15 games. I would just play the lower owned of the two, truthfully. They're now, of course, they're like not, there's no difference in ownership, but if you need to save money, you play LeBron. Davis has been incredible, though, for what that's worth. Jalen Williams, though, like, everyone wants to talk about Chet and SGA, and I understand it. That's what we were all doing, too, and have been doing. But, like, dude, he has been just as good lately. I mean, back-to-back double-digit assist game, almost back-to-back triple-doubles. The scoring has been amazing. And, again, it's another guy that we talk about minutes. Like, he wasn't playing 34, 35, 36 minutes earlier in the year consistently. Now, coinciding with 35 plus fantasy points in 4 straight games is 34, 34, 36, 35 minutes. And you extend players extra minutes and they can go on personal runs to get you to this type of production. So, again, I think this game is going to be more competitive than maybe it leads on to on the surface. And if that's the case, look at the Washington game. Look at the Atlanta game, where the inferior teams are competitive with OKC, and you get ceiling performances from guys on OKC. So yeah, I love Jalen Williams. I think small forward, the top half of the small forward position is really, really strong.
Yep, I'm with you there. Where are we when it comes to OG Anunoby? We've gone back and forth on this a few times. Price point wise, obviously he's been a little bit cheaper than he's been the last few slates. On a smaller slate, though, does he present at least a floor that is appealing here?
You can. There's always the case he's in early foul trouble here, guarding Kyrie Irving. There's a very heavy reliance on 3 balls, obviously, you've been saying it since like he's gotten here, and it's not that like he's been bad. I mean, if you look at the pricing, he's missed out twice, yes, but he's also hit 5x or better in 2 of the 4 that he's actually been on the main slate for, because that Minnesota game was like a noon start, I think, his debut or whatever it was. It's fine. It's just OG, or there's 4 Dallas guys that you could play below.
Oh, that's what it is, right? Derek Jones Jr. is here at $4,900 on DraftKings, getting 50% rostership, and this is something that we've been playing, fairly consistently as it is this year as like a third man for this team when guys have been out. Brings you some defense. The scoring had been better than we've really seen from him in the past, and the value for him, especially in this matchup, is certainly interesting. The one problem, again, is now his defensive draw is going to be Julius Randle today.
Yeah, and he's also like, him and Josh Green are and I wrote Derek Jones up because I think the minute ceiling on Derek Jones is definitely higher than like Josh Green's is, where Josh Green is obviously cheaper, but we've seen, he's just not And I think people are looking back at that last Portland game, right? Where they look at Josh Green, and I did it too. I liked Josh Green in that matchup.
Charles says Green stinks too.
He is, I mean, he is not a good fantasy per minute guy. It's actually with the guys out or that are doubtful. Maxi Kleba and Derek Lively both listed doubtful. Also, interesting note, Maxi Kleba doubtful, so he'll be back soon.
Yeah.
Josh Green is a 0.67 fantasy point per minute guy, right?
Not good.
So, like, I understand getting there from a financial standpoint, but like, I would rather play Jones. I feel better about the minutes if he stays out of foul trouble. I mean, we've seen, look at the last
there's
two
just
games.
more ways for him to score, right?
Yes.
Like with Josh Green,
Correct.
You need buckets. With Derrick Jones, you get 3 steals game, you got 3 block game, you got a 4+ steals and block game. Randomly 0 rebounds. He's not a 0 rebound guy, but then he also pulled in 10 boards one game as well. Right. So, there's a lot more ways for him to contribute. And then if the shooting gets hot, the upside for him at $4,900, super appealing. And then on FanDuel, again, he's 56. Like I like that $5,600 price tag. I think it is for him as well. Cam, what do you think about loading up 4 Mavs and then getting SGA, Tatum, and Hartenstein? I mean, we'll get to center in a moment. Hartenstein has been the center of my choice today as well. Locking him in there, because you have the dual positional eligibility with Anthony Davis, throwing him in at power forward. So perfectly fine going the 4 Mavs if you want. Just, your 4 Mavs going to be what? The 4 value Mavs, Hardy, Jones,
Kyrie,
THJ, and
are we fading Kyrie? Oh,
four value
okay,
Mavs is what he's saying.
We're fading Kyrie. Interesting.
Fading Kyrie, going Tatum is what basically the selection there, or SGA.
I don't hate it, but also, like, if Dallas is competitive in this game, Kyrie is gonna drop a 50
minimum, right?
The 5th straight game, right? So
yep,
that's definitely something you have to consider. But maybe you're playing it as if they're not going to be competitive, and you're playing Jaden Hardy, who's going to play in a blowout, and you're playing like Omax or like somebody who's going to get blowout run, right? I mean, I'm not advising that. I'm just saying, the likelihood of Dallas keeping competitive without Kyrie is very low.
Milwaukee, again, home, 2-point favorites now, down from 5.5, big total. Sir Giannis is here at 12K. You would think with all the value that is on the slate, that Giannis would be getting more love, and yet he is just around 10% today.
We talked about that on the show last night, that nobody was going to play Giannis. And, it's just one of those things. Like, if you get a star at low ownership and you want to play him in whatever matchup he's in, he can, if there's anyone on the slate that can go out and get you 80, because there's nothing defenses can do about a 7'3" dude that takes 2 dribbles across half court and is at the rim, then play him, right? Like, if he's attacking the rim like he can, there's nothing Boston can do about it, right? I mean, there's nothing anyone can do about it, not just Boston. But so if you feel that you're comfortable with your Dallas value, because that's the direction you're going to have to take to get to Giannis, plus whatever, you're basically fading the Lakers, you possibly could have Kyrie, then play Giannis. But that's a way you win a tournament, because if Giannis goes for 80 at 10% tonight and you have Giannis and you hit on your Dallas value, you're in a very good position for, heading into that late game, which there's exposure there. We've talked about,
and when we, on a smaller slate, like you said, you're getting all that value, you can very comfortably put a Giannis in your lineup at 12K. And if he goes for the ceiling, like, that's your differentiator right there. Yes. I mean, that's the guy in tournaments where you can go eat the value chalk if you want, but if you're getting a 10% Giannis is going to go score 20 more fantasy points tonight than SGA or Jason Tatum or Anthony Davis, then you're fine. Like, that's going to put you over your, the guys that are in the GBPs kind of building similar lineup builds, because no doubt about it, unless the rostership is completely wrong, which it's not that wrong, everybody's basically starting their lineup with 3, 2, 4 Mavericks tonight, and you're all going to be playing the majority of the same 3 to 4 Mavericks in your lineups here. So finding where to be different on these smaller slates, especially with the player pool so tight, and you're getting a guy like Giannis at that low ownership, if you're making multiple lineups tonight, got to throw some darts his way.
I think, and I just wanted to toy with the idea of Giannis Kyrie because I think that would be where like I don't want to fade Kyrie tonight. I know the OG matchup's coming, but no matchup has mattered lately for Kyrie. And then you plug Hardaway, and we're going to talk about a value center in a second that I have a lot of interest in. You have about 5,200, and that's not including a fourth Dallas player,
Right.
right? Which could be Derek Jones, which could be
Josh
Josh
Green.
Green, right? Both who are extremely cheap. So it could be Dwight Powell, who we'll get into in a second, who's 4,200. So it is very doable. And if you wanted to use Giannis at center, you
Yeah.
can do that too because he's eligible there. So um, the builds with Giannis are definitely easier than I think some people may realize or care to realize. And when you look at the ownership, it's Kyrie plus a Laker is
Right.
essentially what everyone's spending up on, right? So that's where the discrepancy between the Laker and Giannis is. Like everyone's playing. Cam, you listen to the show. I saw you in the comments, Cam. Salute to you, Cam the man 325 out there. But yeah, I mean, if anytime you can get one of the three best players in basketball at 10% ownership, like it's definitely something as a tournament player that you should definitely consider.
Sure. Other power forwards, obviously, again, that we work our way down. KD at 96, Julius Randle 88. Keeping with sort of who's going to play mostly power forward tonight, Jeremy Grant at $6,800. Listen, no knocking on what Julius Randle's doing right now. I mean, he only played 32 minutes because of that blowout. He gave you 42 fantasy points. Would have been well on his way to 50 plus had he played the full, 38 here. It's just, what do you believe? I mean, my heart in feeling is that I think the Knicks do kind of run away with this one. But if it's only going to be a 4-point game, then you're getting 38, 39 minutes out of Julius Randle tonight. He is going to go nutty, I think, in this spot.
Agreed. 48 plus DK points in 5 of his last 7. And without Barrett, quickly, Mitchell Robinson, which obviously 3 big omissions for this Knicks team. 32% usage, 1.32 fantasy points per minute. Like just elite numbers. Slow start for Julius Randle. Maybe all-star starter for Julius Randle by like the time we get to the break. Like he's been that good. So yeah, I mean, that's another reason why people aren't playing Giannis, right? Because you look at the price discrepancy, you're like, oh, Julius Randle, probably a 9K player that I'm still getting sub 9K. And I save $3,000 going from Giannis to Julius Randle. So why don't I sign up for that one?
Yeah, no. Well, that's what I'm saying, right? Like nobody's really getting, nobody was getting to Giannis because Randall's getting a lot of love, right? Randall and AD are kind of right up there as like top spends if you aren't going the Kyrie route tonight. So I'm loving that spot. No one's really playing Kevin Durant. Again, he's been one of the few consistently productive Suns this year when everybody's been together. So if you want to pivot around, KD certainly can do that in a competitive game tonight. Now I'm less interested in Jeremy Grant. I know you think if Portland can hang around, he could be a factor for it, but I'm not really going there at 68.
Yeah, it's a tournament play. He's like definitively behind Sharp and Simons for me, and even to an extent Jabari Walker. If Jabari Walker were to play and start, because I do think there's a case for that too. But yeah, Grant's a tournament play only. We know he can score the basketball at an elite level, but he's just so deficient in terms of like peripheral stats everywhere else. So he would have need to be cheaper for me to like really have a lot.
Yep. And then again, value guys, we've talked about Derek Jones Jr. already. Josh Hart's down here. Anybody else for value power forward for you?
No. I mean, no. I was gonna like. I know people are gonna like play Grant Williams at 36 if he plays, but man, has he been horrible.
Yeah.
He has not played well at all this year. 42% shooter. Everything is kind of down. Like even the minutes lately for Grant Williams, even in a situation where they've been down front court options, he's not being extended past 20 minutes. So I'm kind of out on Grant Williams even at 36 if he plays. And if I lose I lose to Grant Williams today, if he plays, then like salute to you, Grant. Salute to you.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Let's go over to center because I think it's kind of interesting where the rostership is here today. If you go to FanDuel, Yusuf Nurkic is getting a ton of love today. This matchup against the Lakers here. I mean, what's your overall thoughts? Because we had the question in the chat from our guy Cameron, who's the best mid-tier center today? I told you I was plugging a lot of Hartenstein in my lineups again, $6,500. The way he's been playing ball lately has been ridiculous. Man took just one shot against Portland, still came out at 34 fantasy points, the rebounding, the steals, the blocks. Like he's been filling up the stat sheet. But Yusuf Nurkic is kind of right there as a mid-tier spend at the center position. What's your feelings? Why is everybody going to the Sun center tonight?
So I kind of teased it earlier when I said, the Suns' big three, but maybe we should be talking about a fourth option, and it's Yusuf Nurkic. And I wrote Yusuf Nurkic up today in the playbook, and here's why. The Suns' big three have played 107 minutes together, okay? Yusuf Nurkic has been on the floor for 94 of those minutes. If you had to guess who leads that quartet of fantasy producers per minute, who would you guess? Just had to guess.
I'm guessing because of the question, it's Yusuf Nurkic.
Ding, ding, ding. Very challenging question that you answered superbly. It's not close. 1.44 fantasy points per minute for Yusuf Nurkic when he's playing with Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal this year. That's Devin Booker's in second at 1.22.
Right.
Like, I get it that there is a tough matchup on the other side with Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis also, although he is a good rim protector, the Lakers have been getting torched defensively. They're bottom 10 in the league over the last 15 games. There's obviously some type of rift internally, right? I like Nurkic quite a bit tonight. I think the price has come down to a really reasonable number. And I don't disagree on the Hartenstein front at all. Like, this is a ceiling type rebound atmosphere when you have Dwight Powell on the opposite side of things.
Yeah, and then whenever Dwight Powell comes off the floor, like what's their plan B, right? Like,
is it Grant Williams? Is it Markieff Morris? Is it
might be
Rashawn
Holmes? Might be Markieff. Yeah, it might be Markieff.
Yeah, I mean there's like shorter guys awaiting Hartenstein, because the thing about Hartenstein too in this role, Tibbs is not playing Precious Achiuwa. He's just like, it's 10 minutes because Tibbs wants his centers to be able to defend, and Precious Achiuwa is a madman who is definitely better on the other side of the basketball.
You know what's funny is he played Taj Gibson more than he's played Precious Achiuwa, but he had to let go of Taj to get Achiuwa on the roster. So
and then made sure on Taj's way out, he said he's still got something left in the tank. But like, I think Hartenstein and Nurkic, like whichever guy you get to, is an extremely reasonable option on both fronts. I think Nurkic is one of those dudes that just has an insane ceiling because he's a good scorer. He's a very good hub player. Like, they can run their offense through Nurkic in a high post, and he's a very good passer. And he's also obviously an elite rebounder. He's been able to stay on the floor against the Lakers this year, averaging like 30 minutes per game. So, we obviously just, anytime you're playing someone against Anthony Davis, your mind just
and these are numbers like you mentioned, then never had all three on the floor together. Right.
So I like Nurkic. I like Hartenstein. I have no problem getting to either. I personally might go Nurkic in this spot. I think there's a higher ceiling, just because we know Hartenstein took one shot last game. I mean, that's, he may be great peripherally, but if you're taking one shot and those peripheral stats do happen to dry up, right? They just you have an off game peripherally, then what? Like, what's
good?
You're dead, right? At 6,500. So I like Nurk quite a bit. I like Hartenstein. I lean Nurk a little
bit. Anthony Davis getting similar rostership to Julius Randle, who's obviously cheaper. But when coming up to spend up guys at center eligibility, top three center eligible players in terms of roster tonight is Dwight Powell, Julius Randle, Anthony Davis. We obviously have no problems getting the Anthony Davis. Played 40 minutes against Toronto, went for 41, 11, and 6. 66 fantasy points there in 3 games against Phoenix, averaging 51.5 fantasy points. we talked about it with this being a 10 p.m. game, 2 hours or so after the Knicks Dallas game kicks off. Anthony Davis is certainly a problem that you have to worry about when it comes to your lineups waiting for that game to finish.
Do you feel like these like questionables at this point are fake? Like it's just like they're just. I mean, we saw it last year, right? LeBron played like every game that he was.
Yeah, I think
through.
now because of maybe some of the latest injury news or whatever, they kind of have to list these guys for fear of yeah, something like that. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, like I feel like there's just not like a concern for Davis. He played 40 minutes and had 41 actual. When did he pick up an ankle injury?
Right.
Like not.
He's Tom Brady, right? He was on the injury report for 10 years with an elbow. They're just LeBron James questionable all season. He's at least missed a game or so.
Yeah, Tom Brady. Yeah, Tom Brady's elbow really bothered him for those 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So AD's obviously a guy we like. Porzingis and Holmgren though, like Chet got Duop Reith, Zinger dealing with Brook Lopez here and Giannis. You got a preference of the two?
Chet. This is an abused spot for Chet. If the offense continues to flow the way it has for Chet, I don't know what Duop Reith, Jabari. I mean, Duop Reith too slow. Is not going to be able to guard Chet on the perimeter. Ibu Baji, forget it. I mean, 6 fouls in 4 minutes.
I was gonna say Ibu Baji would be fouling out, taking his snap-ons off, right? Like go to the table, rip them off, like check
6
in,
fouls,
check out, like 5 fouls. Yeah.
And then Jabari Walker, who I think is like serviceable guy that is very high energy, also foul happy. I mean, very small, like operates more as like small forward, power forward, probably like good, solid power forward for the rest of his career.
Dude, this kid was supposed to be a stud last year, gets hurt, missed the year, sat out, but still got to kind of live the NBA life. We called the ceiling game against the Wizards where like Daniel Gafford has absolutely no shot in hell of defending Chet Holmgren here in this game. He just did what he did against Miami, the number one defensive team against opposing centers with Bam out there, and went another 42 fantasy points, filling up the stat sheet, 23, 9, 2, and 3. And now he's going up against, Duop Reith, like you mentioned. I mean, I think Chet is a great tournament play. And if you're right, if Portland hangs in this game and you're going to get another 30, 35 minutes from Chet Holmgren here, like you're going to be paying off the $7,900 price tag, pretty good here.
Yeah, this is easily one of the best matchups for opposing centers too. And we mentioned it. The center room for Portland is not good. I think the only chance they have is Jabari Walker, just because his energy and he is good defensively, but we don't even know if Jabari Walker is officially even playing. Like he's listed questionable. So, we didn't mention Jabari Walker, but I do have some interest in him if he were to start, because I do think Portland makes some lineup changes tonight. For anyone just tuning in, I think Shaedon Sharpe moves into the starting lineup, and if Jabari Walker starts or plays, I think there's a real possibility that Jabari Walker starts as well. And to anyone out there who's new to the show, we do this every day, Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And hit the thumbs up button if you don't mind, and subscribe to our channel too.
So we've had enough questions today, so let's just get to it, right? Cam the Man, Christian Wood season, Cameron Diaz.
Yes.
Christian would have played today. You wrote him up. The roster's kind of getting there. When you mentioned him on the show this morning, I asked you what it was about Christian Wood that you liked. I think you broke it down pretty well. So what is it, again, for those of you who are maybe just checking out now, why is Christian Wood getting the love that he is getting today?
I mean, they've turned to him in the absence of Rui Hachimura, and with Rui Hachimura listed doubtful, the expectation, again, is that he doesn't play. And you have a guy in Christian Wood. We know his pedigree as a fantasy producer. Doesn't matter about everything else you believe about Christian Wood, like the basketball player. It matters about the fantasy production. So $4,300, very good price tag. It's actually the cheapest he's been during this recent stretch, which I find hilarious. Because 3 of the last 5 games, he's played at least 24 minutes. Even in the games that he's played 16 minutes in during that span, 25 and 19 fantasy points. And who knows what could have been if we get a double-double out of him in that Clippers game. But they've turned to him as their backup big. He's playing alongside Anthony Davis as well. We know Phoenix, has multiple backup bigs that are large. I mean, they've been playing Chimezi Metu and
Right.
Bol and Drew Eubanks re-entered the rotation. And it's a perfect spot for Christian Wood to match up against them. Without Hachimura this year, he's almost at a fantasy point per minute, 0.93 fantasy points per minute. And as long as he's going to continue to play this well and has the blessing of, LeBron and Anthony Davis, and clearly he does, and they trust him now into the rotation, playing into the 20s and minutes. He's going to continue to be a staple of the rotation. And if we get 25 minutes out of Christian Wood tonight, there's no doubt in my mind that there's like 30 plus fantasy point upside.
Yeah, rostership on him, he's less than 10% over on FanDuel. He's about 16% on DraftKings. Obviously, everybody's playing Dwight Powell. He's 48% roster tonight. If you go look at the ownership over there at Fantasy Alarm right now, you talked about it, right? He's been a good fantasy point per minute player. He's been fine. We know who Dwight Powell is at this point. There's nothing new, right? There's no secrets behind what Dwight Powell is as a basketball player. He'll give you some rebounds. He'll give you some effort. There's no scoring that comes from Dwight Powell here. Defense, he's fine. He's boring. He's white bread. He's $4,200. It's just, I don't find the appeal to playing Dwight Powell tonight unless you're doing the Giannis with the 4 Mavs tonight or something like that, where you need the value. You plug in Powell at center, you're on your util, and you play Giannis at power forward, or however you want to build it, because he's your 4th Mav tonight, right? Because I would rank him 4th if I was ranking my favorite Mavs. He might be 5th. I don't know, if I really broke it down, but the minutes are probably going to be secure. The roles there for maybe he gets you 20 fantasy points, so that's not going to kill you at $4,200. So, a lot of people playing by Powell, but as Parrish is saying here, great pivot off the Powell chalk tonight if you want to go the value center route this evening.
Great point, Parrish. It's the perfect pivot because they might play the same amount of minutes tonight. Like if Dwight Powell plays 24 minutes, there's a real chance that Christian Wood plays 24. I personally would rather have 24 minutes of Christian Wood than I would 24 minutes of Dwight Powell.
Yeah, no, 100%. If they're both going to play 23 minutes, I'd rather get both sides of that game there as well. All right, James, as we do every show, we end it by building a lineup. All right, let's plug in we did a Irving Giannis pre-build earlier. Do we want to go that route here?
No, I mean, if we want to build multiple lineups, we can. I would prefer to build with one of the Lakers or Julius Randle. Probably would be the direction I'd want to go.
We'll start with the Irving, Hardaway, Jones.
No, I don't think. Let's stick with 3 and then see what we need after that. Because
all right, what's your Laker play? AD.
Yeah, AD would. Or if we need to save money, I would play both.
Okay.
The Christian Wood has not been impacted. Like AD obviously is AD, and then Christian Wood's playing alongside Anthony Davis too.
All right, we got 5,800 for a guard, forward, and utility play here. What's your next favorite spot here?
I mean, there's obviously, I talked about the Shaedon Sharpe piece that I
like Shaedon Sharpe a lot.
Really getting to in tournaments.
Sharpe, put him in the guard spot here.
And for all those that are tuning in for the first time, John and I play tournaments. So Shaedon Sharpe obviously is not someone that you're going to look at in cash games. Your cash game play at this tier would probably be Dante DiVincenzo at 5,100. You're probably playing one of the Mavs forwards, like John just did. I love that build. Like that build. Yep.
Yeah. Kyrie Irving, Jaden Hardy, Tim Hardaway Jr., Anthony Davis, Christian Wood, Shaedon Sharpe, Derek Jones, Yusuf Nurkic. That's us using the value Dallas plays. Obviously, Hardy, Hardaway, and Jones. We're getting Davis and Wood for the Lakers. We're coming back in that stack with Yusuf Nurkic there. We got a one-off Shaedon Sharpe, just as an example lineup to how to go about here tonight. Listen, I think Brunson's great too. I said that line is super suspicious. If Knicks are going to play a competitive game against Dallas tonight, Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson are going to have a day. And you certainly can, as you mentioned, if you want to pivot off Anthony Davis here you can go down to Julius Randle. That'll give you another $1,800 to kind of mess around, with your lineups here, and go in some different directions. You probably could get Brunson, or $100 off getting Brunson there. Could go Chet Holmgren if you want to get off of Nurkic there. If you wanted to even get rid of Christian Wood, move Nurkic into your center spot, so you get that matchup. $6,100 for a util play. Probably not really a great price point though for that.
No, this tier, we talked about this tier a couple times. Like,
last night, right?
Skipping over it like completely. Nurkic, go to. Let's see. If you went to Hartenstein over Nurk, it really wouldn't get you anything either. It'd be like Giddey, but even that, like Giddey's minutes bottomed out yesterday. He only played 20, so it's hard to even like Josh Giddey in this spot.
So you probably just built the right lineup that we just had there.
Yeah,
then, right?
probably.
Like, going back to Davis here.
The only thing that you could realistically do in that lineup would be moving from Jones to
Green.
To Josh Green.
Yeah.
And then
I just don't like Josh Green.
I'd
rather play Derrick Jones.
No, so would I. I mean, Josh Green, again, 0.67 fantasy points per minute, assuming Derek Lively and Maxi Kleber are off the floor. Like, he's not a good fantasy point per minute guy. And there's no guarantee he'll play 30 minutes tonight, especially if Grant Williams ends up playing, right? So,
Cam the Man, if Sharp plays 32 minutes and you don't have him, GG. I mean, that game is competitive at all tonight. Sharp's obviously in a great spot there. Guys, that's the show here for today. Appreciate you all tuning in. If you want to go ahead and give a like to the channel, go do so now. Subscribe. We do the show every day, 5 o'clock Eastern time. Checking out. We also do a pre-show. Record at night, gets posted around 9-10 o'clock in the evening. Get you guys ready for the Friday slate. Already some monster news coming out Friday. Might have the return of LaMelo Ball for the Charlotte Hornets there. So no Joel Embiid. So a lot of news coming through for tomorrow. Get hyped, get excited, and get ready for tonight, though. Get in that Discord if you're not already a member of the Fantasy Storm family. You can scan that QR code there, get access to our premium Discord. We'll be hanging out till roster lock there. Everybody, good luck tonight, this evening with your lineups. Get us on Twitter. We'll catch y'all later.